Steve Harvey was in the middle of reading the final scores when something happened that would make Family Feud history. His producer walked onto the stage with an urgent expression and whispered something in Steve's ear that made him stop mid-sentence. What happened next left everyone in the studio, including both competing families, in tears of joy that would be remembered forever. It was Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024, at the Family Feud studio in Atlanta. The show was taping special episodes for Memorial Day week, featuring military families. The energy in the studio was patriotic and emotional, with red, white, and blue decorations everywhere. The Thompson family from Ohio was competing against the Rodriguez family from Texas, and both families had deep military connections. The Thompson family consisted of Sarah Thompson, a 39-year-old pediatric nurse, her husband Michael, her teenage sons Tyler and Brandon, and her mother Linda. Sarah stood at the center podium, trying to stay focused on the game, but anyone paying attention could see the weight she carried in her shoulders, the exhaustion hidden behind her bright smile. Steve had noticed it all week while taping these military family episodes. These families were different. They carried themselves with a unique mixture of pride and weariness, strength and vulnerability. During a commercial break earlier, he'd made his rounds talking to the families, as he always did. "Tell me about your family's military connection," Steve had asked Sarah during the break. Sarah's smile had wavered for just a moment. "My father, Colonel Robert Chen, he's Air Force, 30 years of service. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "He's finishing up his final assignment before retirement." "Where's he stationed?" Steve asked gently. "Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. He's deputy commander for the 379th Air Expeditionary Wing." Sarah's voice carried both pride and pain. "It's a one-year deployment. He's got about 3 weeks left." Steve nodded knowingly. He'd learned a lot about military life doing these special episodes. "That's a long deployment. How long has he been away total?" Sarah's eyes glistened. "The past 2 years, he's been home for exactly 21 days. 3 different deployments, back to back. This last one, the long one, it's supposed to be his final assignment before he retires." "That's rough," Steve said softly. "Missing a lot of family time." He missed. Sarah's voice caught. He missed the birth of his first grandchild. "My daughter Emma. She's 14 months old now. She's walking, starting to talk. He's only seen her twice in person, for a few days each time when he had leave." Linda, Sarah's mother, had joined the conversation then. "My husband has served his country with honor for 3 decades. We're so proud of him. But we're ready for him to come home. Really come home." "Is that why you're here?" Steve asked. "The prize money?" Sarah nodded, slightly embarrassed. "We're planning his retirement ceremony for next month. After 30 years of service, we want to do something special. The Air Force will do their official ceremony, but we want to throw him a proper celebration with all the people who've supported us through the years. The prize money would help make that happen." Steve had patted her shoulder. "Well, let's win you that money then." Now, as the game resumed after another commercial break, the Thompson family was doing well. They'd won 2 rounds and were gaining momentum. Sarah seemed to be finding her focus, drawing strength from her family around her. "All right, Thompson family," Steve announced. "You've got 176 points. Rodriguez family, you've got 152. We need 24 points to win this round. Sarah, it's on you." The board showed the question. "Name something people do while they're waiting for someone to come home." Sarah's answer was immediate and heartfelt. "Watch the door." Steve felt the emotional weight of her answer. "Watch the door. Let's see if it's up there." The board revealed the number 3 answer worth 22 points. The Thompson family was now just 2 points away from winning the round. It was at that exact moment that Marcus Freeman, Steve's executive producer, walked onto the stage. This was unprecedented. In all Steve's years of hosting, Freeman had never interrupted a taping like this. "Steve," Freeman said urgently, His voice picked up by Steve's microphone. "I need to speak with you. Right now." Steve looked confused and slightly annoyed. "Marcus, we're in the middle of a game here. We're about to win this round." "Steve." Freeman's voice was firm, but there was something else in it. Excitement, maybe? "This cannot wait. Trust me. You need to hear this. Right now." Steve looked at the families, then at the audience, all of whom were murmuring in confusion. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. This has never happened before. Can someone explain to me what's going on?" Freeman leaned in and whispered something in Steve's ear. Steve's eyes went wide, and he looked immediately at Sarah Thompson, then at Linda. "Are you serious?" Steve said to Freeman, forgetting his mic was still on. "Right now?" Freeman nodded. "He's here. He's ready." Steve's eyes filled with tears before he could even process what was happening. He walked over to Sarah, who looked concerned and confused. "Sarah, honey," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion. "There's someone here who needs to see you." Sarah's face went pale. "What? What do you mean? Is something wrong? Is it about my dad?" Before Steve could answer, a voice rang out from the side of the stage, a deep, commanding voice that Sarah hadn't heard in person for almost a year. "Airman Thompson." Sarah's head snapped toward the voice so fast it looked painful. There, walking onto the Family Feud stage in his dress blues, was Colonel Robert Chen, United States Air Force. His uniform was immaculate, his silver eagles gleaming under the studio lights, his chest covered with ribbons representing 30 years of service to his country. "Daddy?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Then louder. "Daddy?" She didn't run. She couldn't. Her legs had given out, and she was on her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Colonel Chen rushed to his daughter, dropping to his knees beside her and pulling her into his arms. "I'm here, baby girl. I'm here," he whispered, but his mic picked it up. "I'm home." The entire studio erupted. There wasn't a dry eye anywhere. Linda was crying, covering her mouth with both hands. The teenage boys were trying to look tough, but failing miserably, as tears streamed down their faces. Even the Rodriguez family was crying, holding each other as they watched the reunion. "How?" Sarah pulled back to look at her father's face, touching it like she couldn't believe he was real. "You had 3 more weeks. You said 3 more weeks." Colonel Chen smiled, his own tears flowing freely. "My replacement arrived early. My commander expedited the paperwork. When I heard you were going to be on Family Feud for Military Week, I knew I had to be here. I couldn't miss another moment." "But when did you get back? How long have you been home?" Sarah was still touching his face, his shoulders, like he might disappear if she stopped. "I landed at Wright-Patterson 6 hours ago. Drove straight here. I haven't even been to the house yet. I had to see you first. I had to see my family." Linda had made her way over, and Colonel Chen stood to embrace his wife. They held each other for a long moment, 30 years of military separations culminating in this reunion. "Robert," Linda whispered, "you're really here. You're really done." "I'm done, Lynn. 30 years, 15 deployments, God knows how many missed holidays and birthdays. I'm done. My terminal leave starts in 2 weeks, and then I'm officially retired. I'm never leaving again." Steve stood nearby, openly weeping. He looked at his producer. "How long have you known about this?" Freeman, emotional himself, replied, "The Colonel's commander called us yesterday. When they found out his family was going to be on the show, they moved heaven and earth to get him here. We've been tracking his flights all day." Steve walked over to the reunited family. "Colonel Chen, welcome home, sir. Thank you for your service." Colonel Chen straightened and saluted Steve, who awkwardly but earnestly returned it. "Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Thank you for giving me this moment with my family." "Colonel, if you don't mind me asking," Steve said, "tell us about this last deployment. A full year in Qatar?" Colonel Chen nodded, his arms still around Sarah. 365 days as deputy commander at Al Udeid. It's the primary hub for air operations in the Middle East.
Before that, I had a 6-month deployment to South Korea. Came home for 10 days, then deployed to Germany for 4 months. It's been a challenging final stretch.
And you missed, Steve prompted gently. The colonel's composure cracked slightly. I missed the birth of my first grandchild, my little Emma. Sarah sent me videos. We did video calls, but it's not the same. I got to hold her for the first time when she was 6 months old, during a 96-hour leave. Then again at 11 months for 4 days. She probably doesn't even remember me. Sarah shook her head. We talk about Grandpa every day. We show her your picture. She knows you, Dad. Speaking of which, Steve said with a small smile, I think there's someone else here who'd like to see you. The audience parted, and Michael, Sarah's husband, walked onto the stage carrying a beautiful 14-month-old girl with Sarah's eyes and her grandfather's nose. Emma was wearing a little dress with Air Force planes printed on it. Emma, Sarah said softly, look who's here. It's Grandpa. The toddler looked at Colonel Chen with curious eyes. She studied his face for a moment. Then her face lit up with recognition. Papa, she squealed, reaching for him. Papa! Colonel Chen took his granddaughter with shaking hands, holding her like she was made of spun glass. She remembers me! Oh my God, she remembers me! We practice every day, Michael said, his own voice rough. We show her your picture and practice saying, Papa. She's been waiting for you, sir. Emma was patting her grandfather's face, fascinated by the ribbons on his uniform. Colonel Chen was crying freely now, not caring about military bearing or protocol. I'm so sorry I missed so much, he whispered. Your first steps. Your first words. But you're here now, Sarah said firmly. That's all that matters. You're here, and you're staying. Steve gave them a moment, then gently continued. Colonel, 30 years of service. That's an incredible sacrifice. Tell us about why you stayed so long. Colonel Chen shifted Emma to his hip, the toddler contentedly playing with his name tag. I joined the Air Force, right out of college. Met Linda at my first duty station, DMR. She was a teacher at the base school. We knew what we were signing up for. The deployments, the moves, the missed moments. But we believed in the mission. We believed in serving something greater than ourselves. He looked at his family. But every deployment got harder. Every goodbye hurt more. Missing Sarah's high school graduation because I was in Iraq. Missing the boys' basketball championships. Missing anniversaries, birthdays, Christmases. Linda raised our children, essentially as a single parent for months, and sometimes years at a time. Linda spoke up. It was worth it. I'm proud of him. We're all proud of him. But we're ready for the next chapter. The chapter where he's just ours. Steve turned to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what sacrifice looks like. This is what service means. Not just the service member, but the entire family serves. The Rodriguez family had moved closer. The grandmother of their family, Maria Rodriguez, approached Colonel Chen. My husband was Air Force too, she said softly. Retired 15 years ago. Thank you for your service, Colonel. And thank you to your family for their sacrifice. What happened next was beautiful. Both families merged into one group. Competitors no longer, but simply Americans honoring service and sacrifice. Steve looked at his producer, then made a decision. You know what? We're changing the rules today, Steve announced. Both families are going to fast money together. Whatever you win, you split. This isn't about competition anymore. This is about coming together. The audience erupted in applause. Colonel Chen tried to protest. Mr. Harvey, that's not necessary. We came to play the game fair and square. Colonel, with all due respect, Steve said firmly, you've been playing by the rules for 30 years. Today, we make new rules. Today, We honor what you and families like yours have sacrificed. But Steve wasn't done. And there's something else. My foundation, the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation, we're going to match whatever you win today and donate it to a charity of your choice that supports military families. Both families were stunned. Sarah was crying again.
Mr. Harvey, you don't have to.
Yes, I do, Steve interrupted. This is what we should do. This is how we say thank you. They played fast money with both families working together. Colonel Chen participated while holding Emma, who had fallen asleep against his shoulder, completely content in her grandfather's arms. The questions seemed to take on special meaning given the moment. Name something families do when a soldier comes home, Steve read. Cry tears of joy, Colonel Chen answered immediately. Name a holiday that's hardest to celebrate when family is deployed. Christmas, Linda said softly. Name something military families are good at. Being strong? Sarah answered. Name something worth waiting for. Homecoming, both families said in unison. When they won the maximum prize, the studio erupted again. With Steve's foundation match, each family would receive significant money. But everyone knew this wasn't about the money anymore. Colonel Chen, Steve said as things calmed down. Your daughter mentioned you're having a retirement ceremony next month. Tell us about that. Colonel Chen, still holding his sleeping granddaughter, smiled. June 15th. After 30 years, I'll officially retire. It's going to be at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Just a small ceremony, really. Small? Sarah interjected. Dad, half the Air Force wants to be there. You've mentored hundreds of airmen over the years. They all want to honor you. What are your plans after retirement? Steve asked. Colonel Chen looked at his family. Learn how to be a full-time husband, father, and grandfather. I've got a lot of time to make up for. Emma's going to get sick of Papa pretty quickly. Never, Sarah said firmly. Tyler, one of the teenage boys, spoke up for the first time. Grandpa, are you really staying? Like, for good? Colonel Chen's voice was thick with emotion. Every single one, Tyler. Every game. Every concert. Every birthday. Every regular Tuesday. I'll be there for all of it. Steve had one more surprise. Colonel, we did a little research. You've been awarded the Bronze Star, the Meritorious Service Medal with 4 oak leaf clusters, the Air Force Commendation Medal with 6 oak leaf clusters, and numerous other decorations. You've served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and countless other operations. Is there anything you want people to know about that service? Colonel Chen was quiet for a moment. Every medal, every commendation, they belong to my family too. Linda kept our home running while I was gone. Sarah became the most resilient person I know. My sons learned to be men while I watched through a computer screen. They served too, just in a different way. He looked directly at the camera. There are thousands of families like mine. Career military families who spend more time apart than together. They need our support, not just when their service member is deployed, but when they come home too. Reintegration is hard. Learning how to be a family again after long separations. It takes work. What's the hardest part about coming home? Steve asked gently. Colonel Chen considered the question. The guilt. The guilt of all the moments missed. The guilt of putting your family through that. And honestly, the adjustment from military life to civilian life. For 30 years, I've had a mission, a purpose, a structure. Now I have to find a new mission. I think you've already found it, Steve said, gesturing to Emma sleeping in his arms. Yes. Colonel Chen smiled. Yes, I have. The taping continued, but it had transformed into something more than a game show. It became a celebration of service, a recognition of sacrifice, and most importantly, a homecoming. When the show aired the following week, the response was overwhelming. Military families from around the country shared their own stories of reunion and reintegration. Veterans organizations reached out to both families. A scholarship fund was established in Colonel Chen's name for children of deployed airmen. But the most touching response came from other military children and grandchildren who had experienced similar separations. Hundreds of letters poured in, sharing stories of missed moments and joyful reunions. A month later, Steve and his wife Marjorie attended Colonel Chen's retirement ceremony at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It was far from small. Over 300 people attended to honor 3 decades of service. Airmen from throughout Colonel Chen's career flew in from around the world. During the ceremony, Brigadier General Patricia Williams, who had served with Colonel Chen in multiple deployments, spoke about his leadership. "Colonel Chen never asked his airmen to do anything he wouldn't do himself," she said. "He spent every major holiday deployed, so his younger airmen could be home with their families. He extended deployment so others could return to sick family members. His sacrifice went beyond duty. It was personal." When it was Colonel Chen's turn to speak, he kept it simple. "For 30 years, I've worn this uniform with pride. I've served alongside the finest men and women in the world. But today, as I retire, my greatest accomplishment isn't any medal or commendation. It's the family who waited for me, who supported me, who loved me through every deployment and separation." He looked at Emma, who was in Sarah's arms, reaching for her papa. "My service to the Air Force is complete. My service to my family is just beginning." The ceremony concluded with the traditional flag folding and presentation. But there was one more surprise. Steve Harvey stepped up to the podium. "If I may," Steve said to the presiding officer, who nodded. "I'm not military, but I've learned something about service from the Chen Thompson family. Service isn't just about the one who wears the uniform. It's about everyone who loves them and waits for them." Steve turned to the audience. "That day on Family Feud, we all witnessed something powerful. We saw what homecoming really means. Not just the physical return, but the promise of presence. The promise that the waiting is over." He looked at Colonel Chen. "Sir, on behalf of a grateful nation, and on behalf of everyone who watched your reunion with your family, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the missed birthdays and holidays. Thank you for the sacrifice. But most of all, thank you for showing us what love looks like. The kind of love that endures separation and distance and time." 3 months after retirement, Colonel Chen had settled into his new routine. Every morning, he drove Sarah to work so he could keep Emma for the day. They had adventures, the park, the zoo, story time at the library. Simple things that he'd dreamed about during long nights in Qatar. Sarah would find them in the afternoons, usually in the backyard. Emma would be toddling around, picking up leaves, and showing them to her papa, who treated each one like a treasure. The sight never failed to make her cry happy tears. "She's making up for lost time," Linda would say, watching her husband crawl around on the ground with his granddaughter, his knees protesting after 30 years of military service.
They both are.
The Thompson family still watched Family Feud together. It had become their tradition, gathering at Sarah and Michael's house every evening. When their episode re-aired, they watched Colonel Chen walk onto that stage for the 100th time. "Were you really surprised?" Tyler asked his grandfather one evening. Colonel Chen smiled. "Shocked. I knew your mom was going on the show, but I thought I'd surprise her after, at the hotel. When Mr. Harvey's producer met me at the airport and explained their plan, I couldn't believe it." "Do you miss it?" Brandon asked. "The Air Force?" Colonel Chen was quiet for a moment. "I miss the people. I miss the sense of purpose. But I don't miss being away. I don't miss watching you all grow up through a computer screen." He looked at Emma, who was playing with blocks on the floor. "Your sister took her first steps while I was in Korea. Tyler, you hit your first home run while I was in Iraq. Brandon, you won the science fair while I was in Afghanistan. Your mom graduated nursing school while I was in Qatar. I have a whole lifetime of missed moments." "But you were serving our country," Tyler said. "Yes." Colonel Chen agreed. "And I'm proud of that service. But now I'm serving my family, and that's just as important." One evening, About 6 months after retirement, Steve Harvey called the Chen Thompson family personally. He was doing a follow-up special on military families and wanted to check in. "How's retirement treating you, Colonel?" Steve asked over video call. Colonel Chen, with Emma on his lap, smiled. "Please, just Robert now." Or Papa, according to this one. Papa. "And how's the adjustment been?" "Really?" Steve asked. Robert was honest. "Harder than I expected in some ways, easier in others. I still wake up at 04:30 out of habit. I still make my bed with military corners. Sometimes I catch myself asking Linda for permission to leave the house, old habit from having to report movements." Sarah chimed in from beside him. "But he hasn't missed a single soccer practice, school event, or bedtime story. He's making up for lost time." "Any regrets?" Steve asked gently. Robert considered the question. "I regret the time missed. I regret the burden placed on Linda and Sarah. But I don't regret my service. It was an honor to serve. It's just an equal honor to be home." "What would you tell other military families going through long separations?" Steve asked. Linda answered this time that it's okay to struggle. It's okay to be angry sometimes at the sacrifice required. Love doesn't mean it's easy. Love means you endure it together, even when you're apart. Sarah added, "And when they come home, be patient. Reintegration takes time. You're learning how to be a family again. Don't expect it to be perfect immediately." "And for the service members?" Steve prompted. Robert's voice was firm. "Know when it's time. I stayed 30 years, and I'm proud of every one of them. But I almost stayed too long. I almost missed too much. No career is worth losing your family. When it's time to come home, come home." As they ended the call, Steve had one last thing to say. That day on Family Feud, when you walked onto that stage, it wasn't just your family crying. It was all of us. You reminded us what service means, what sacrifice looks like, and what love can endure. Thank you for that gift. A year after the Family Feud surprise, the Chen Thompson family gathered for Emma's second birthday. The backyard was full of friends, extended family, and several Air Force families who had become close to them through the years. Colonel Chen, Robert in retirement, toot at the grill, wearing the apron Sarah had given him that said Papa's Grill Command. He was surrounded by other veterans, sharing stories and laughing. "You know what the best part is?" one of his former airmen said. "Seeing you like this, happy, present. You gave us 30 years, Colonel. You've earned this." As Emma toddled around the yard, chasing bubbles blown by her cousins, she periodically returned to her grandfather, wrapping her tiny arms around his leg before running off again. Each time, Robert's face lit up like the Sunday. Sarah watched from the porch with her mother. "Remember last year?" she said softly. "Her first birthday. We had his picture at the table, an empty chair. We sang Happy Birthday over video call. And now he's here," Linda said, watching her husband of 35 years flip burgers and make silly faces at his granddaughter. "Really here." As the sun set on the birthday party, Robert found himself sitting in a circle of children, reading Emma's favorite book for the 4th time. The other kids had requested it too, drawn to Papa's storytelling voice that could make even the simplest tale sound like an adventure. Michael leaned over to Sarah. "Your dad's found his new mission, hasn't he?" Sarah smiled, tears in her eyes. "Yeah, being Papa. Being here. It's the mission he was always meant for. He just had to serve his country first." The Family Feud episode became something of a legend in military circles. It was shown at yellow ribbon reintegration events, used as a training tool for discussing the emotional aspects of military homecomings. But for the Chen Thompson family, it was simply the day everything changed. The day the waiting ended. The day Papa came home for good. Steve Harvey kept the photo from that day in his office. The moment Robert walked onto the stage, the instant Sarah saw him, the collapse of 30 years of sacrifice into one moment of pure joy. Whenever he had a bad day or forgot why he did what he did, he looked at that photo. Because sometimes the most important surprises aren't about games or prizes. Sometimes they're about a grandfather finally getting to be what he'd always wanted to be: present. A colonel who traded his command for a 2-year-old's tea party, his strategic planning for bedtime stories, his deployment orders for soccer practice schedules. Robert Chen served his country with distinction for 30 years. But his greatest service, the one that mattered most, began the day he walked onto that Family Feud stage and finally, truly, came home. The waiting was over. The real mission, being Papa, had just begun.